Okay, thanks everybody for coming. It's not the warmest spring day, so thank you for coming.
It's very warm up here.
Entrepreneurial spirit, right? We have a very intimate audience today. Oh, by the way, this is Mitch and this is Eric. You guys all read their profile?
Nice to meet you, everybody.
Since we have a smaller audience today, what I want to do is survey the room first. Can we just use 10 seconds, every person, tell us what you do and why you're here today, what you want to get out of it, so that it's easier for us to assess how do we curate the conversation. We'll start with the gentleman on the phone. 10 seconds. Name what you do and why you're here. What do you want to get out of the event today?
Right. So my name is Mario, and I work for BMO. I'm just here to learn from you guys.
That's why I'm here. Learn from you guys. So it all works together.
Yes.
BMO do what?
Private wells.
Okay, private.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is James. Call me James. I'm a software engineer. I just landed in Canada 2 months, and so come here to know everything.
Your English is amazing for 2 months here.
Thank you.
He came from Philadelphia.
Welcome, neighbors.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have similar background.
From Philadelphia too?
Longer, about it's not 2 months, it's 2 years.
Wow, great. Okay. From
China. Of
oh,
course.
nice. Okay. And what do you do right now, or like?
I'm looking for an opportunity for development in the future. I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually in the audience, when somebody says that, they're usually my experience tells me they're looking for something to invest. Just so you know. Okay, next.
My name is Kevin, and I come from IT. I have an IT consulting company based on doing the cloud services and web design, software outsourcing, and come over here looking for a new opportunity.
Great.
My name is Cecilia, and I work at State Street as a fund accountant. I'm come here to just get some idea because I want to open the business in the future.
My name is Mark Corporon, and I work in merchandising. I've worked with State of Canada for the last 5 years, and I'm looking to maybe start a business on the side of my own, and just kind of wondering what the biggest obstacles are going to be there and how to kind of get some momentum.
And he traveled like 3 hours today just to get the mic and the sound system working. So he's a volunteer too.
My name is Jessie. I work at Invesco Asset Management Firm. So I always want to start my own business. So today I'm just be here, wanted to learn what are the things I need to develop like down the future. Marketing is definitely really essential. So really wanted to get to talk to you guys about other things. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, my name is Hamail, and I'm one of 4 partners in Peace Environmental. So we've been fairly steady for about 7-8 years. So now we're going through a stage of rebranding. So we want to move to the next stage of our evolution.
Sorry, Peace Environmental?
PEA, yeah, like peace on earth.
Is that a charitable organization?
No, it's a for-profit organization.
That's the way to go.
Okay, we gotta talk after. This is amazing. Okay, that's good.
Hi, I'm Zoe from CIBC Internal Audit. Even though we're told to be stay independent, but my understanding is we're trying to be provide consulting services to the company as well. So I'm quite interested in marketing and also hoping I can start some side job as well. That's why I'm here.
Great.
My turn. My name is Vivi. I working on the accounting firm before, but right now I changed my job for the bakery store. So I just,
bakery store?
Yeah.
So do you own your own?
No, I want it. So I just looking for the opportunity for the business.
Great.
Did you bring any treats for the group?
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Hi everyone, my name is Alan. I work as market research analyst at American Standard. I'm here to social with people with similar mindset and then pick up their brains obviously, and then to see what we can get if we want to start our business. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cindy. I was a legal assistant for the previous 5 years, and I'm just here to explore my options and see where my next step of my career will be.
Great. on the back.
Hi, my name is Iris. I was working in Randstad before as a recruiter, and right now I'm running my own startup, which is NetShaker.
It's what?
NetShaker.
What is that?
It's okay.
All right, we'll connect afterwards.
If she told you, you know what happens.
Oh, that's true. We haven't signed the NDA yet. Okay.
Hi, my name is Gary. I'm working for Be My Smile in the corporate treasury. I'm currently running the Bay Street Professional Group, and Cindy is my partner in the subsidiary entrepreneurship group. So this will be our 18th event. So I have working with Cindy for a long time.
So he gets volunteers. He's a marketing guy.
Hi there, my name is David. I'm currently working at Grow Life in an asset management role in real estate. Came here hoping to get some more information about entrepreneurship and the challenges that you guys have or face when you start your own business, as well as the day-to-day operations. My parents are pretty successful entrepreneurs, and I hope to one day become one of them.
What industry were your parents in?
Sorry?
What industry were your parents in?
Raw materials, I guess mining.
Like in China, right?
Yeah, in China. Yeah, international trade.
I'm a new graduate from Walu, and I'm currently managing a social media platform for helping Walu students gain information. And as a part-time job, I'm working for them.
And she's one of the volunteers today, too.
Hi, my name is Summer, and I just graduated from Brock University, even though right now they have sexual harassment scandal, but I still love Brock. And I'm trying to find a job and try to find my own career path. So I really need advice, and I really need friends in Toronto. Thank you.
Great.
I'm
And
Patrick.
someone said volunteer too, and Patrick is also our long-term volunteer too.
I'm MBA student. I'm a videographer volunteer for tonight, and I'm looking into business in medical service.
Excellent. Why don't we switch seats? So I can see Mitch when he's talking.
Sure, whatever you want.
Since we sort of have to talk to each other, instead of just everybody, we'll do it this way. So it's a little more conversational.
And we do like it's a tennis match.
That's right. That way when Mitch talks, it's not like he's asking me the wrong question over my shoulder.
Entrepreneurs, always very flexible.
It's very flexible.
Okay, so I think most of the question today will be concentrated on marketing, how you get started, and we'll talk about money, and we'll talk about growth, and we'll talk about... The question is, before I even ask the question, maybe like a brief intro, what did you do, how you got here, and what you are doing now, for both of you guys.
Mitch, go ahead. I just need to know how long to be.
Okay. In 1902, my parents know. You might know how long. Yeah. So I actually always wanted to be in marketing and advertising. I don't know why. I just knew even when I was growing up, it seemed like a fun, interesting thing to do. And so it was very easy for me actually when it was time to go to university that I was going to do. I figured I'll get a business degree. So I did my undergrad at York University here in Toronto in business, and nobody understood what that degree was. So I went back, and I didn't get the job that I wanted, so I went back and I did my MBA and just got that done. And actually that was around a time when you actually needed, an MBA meant something in terms of getting a job, and all the good jobs for marketers at the time, there was no tech cluster, sector, anything, was working at packaged goods companies. So I started my career at Procter & Gamble, a very large company, and my plan was to be the president of Procter & Gamble one day. But 3 years later, I wasn't there anymore. And really quite by accident, I ended up at a company. I had a recruiter that I was looking at, told him I just want to go somewhere, I want to have fun, I want to be myself, and I want to make a difference. And I ended up at a company called Interactive Media Group, which eventually became Lavalife. And I was their first marketer that they hired back in 1993, before there was an internet, before there was voicemail, but we had a telephone dating service. And my job was to figure out how to grow our markets. And no one had ever done this before. And spent 9 years there, my last two, as the VP marketing with a team of 27 people. I really grew up there as a marketer and a business person. And it was through that experience that I really learned the power of hiring amazing people and building a great culture, and that the kind of team you build around you is really going to be the key to your success. And I had a lot of fun doing that. And I also discovered that I like building things, and I like figuring out how to make things grow, not just the business, but I love coaching and developing people, and I love figuring out how a company can grow and scale. So it gets faster after that, but that's the context.
But hold on. Does everybody know what Lava Life is?
Does anyone know? It's an online dating service.
You say a lot about yourself if you know what level it is.
Yeah, I realize that not everyone's from Toronto, but it was the #1 day. We went from when I started from $2 million to over $100 million in revenue over 9 years, which over 9 years today seems like forever because you're supposed to do that in 2 years. But I learned, and I mean, a lot of people are trying to figure out what they want to do, and I think I want to do this, and I really learned at Lava Life that I really liked coming in and building things, building businesses, figuring that out in people and organizations. So really, all my other choices after that were really easy. I worked at a company called FreshBooks, and I was...
Does everyone know what a FreshBook is? Did you see their...
small business accounting service.
Yep. Correct. I don't know if you guys saw their advertisement. Like, they actually grew to be this Canadian local startup legend. Like, just happened in recent years, right? It's like...
Yeah, when I was there, and then now it's kind of okay. No, just kidding. It's an amazing company. But yeah, they're growing continue to grow really quickly. But I was employee number 10, and their first senior marketing hire was there for 4.5 years, and we grew that business and that company a lot, and I left there because it was time to go. We got big enough, and the growth part was fun, and the next part of the growth was going to be fun, but probably more fun for someone else that liked to take it to the next level. And I joined a company called Vidyard in Waterloo, and they're a video marketing platform. I was only there a year. That's a whole other story, because we thought we were going to operate out of Toronto, but sort of helped figure out how to scale that company up. I was employee number 12 there. Spent a couple of years at a company called ClearFit, and helped them like triple their growth in a couple of years. And then they decided to do something different, so that also was for somebody else. So it's really important to know what you like to do, so you know when it's time to go and do that somewhere else. And now I just joined a company called FundThrough, and I've just been there since December. And what we do there is we're an invoice funding platform. So imagine you're a small business owner and you've invoiced, you're a good customer. You can upload that invoice onto our platform, and instead of waiting 30, 60, or 90 days to get paid, you can get that invoice paid within 24 hours. And that's what we're helping small businesses with their cash flow. So I'm going through the whole process again. I'm the first senior hire. There's 14 people, and we're trying to figure out how to make this thing work and scale up again. So
cool.
There you go. That was like 30 seconds. But I hope that's important context so you all know. Good questions. Anything in that line of questioning is good. Anything outside.
So in 1993, I was in my second last year of high school. And it was going really well, so I decided to finish high school. And then I went on to Western University, and then I went to Arizona and did my MBA there. But I'm not going to go too far down in the family history. The history of Eric is very simple, really. I spent the past 15 years, by and large, working with and for a number of consulting firms and software companies in the Microsoft ecosystem. So my background today is all about Microsoft. I spent the better part of 10 years implementing something called SharePoint. Everyone know what SharePoint is? I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. I'm a Microsoft MVP, which means that I'm very close to folks in the Redmond campus, which is where Microsoft is headquartered. And I know my way around the Microsoft world very well. Back in about 2005, 2006, 2007, I started to get really frustrated with the way that organizations were using SharePoint. Now I can't really say that, so you'll edit it out later. But my frustrations in consulting, if anyone is a consultant, you know that your frustrations become part of what you do and who you are, and your job becomes trying to ensure that your customers stay away from the landmines. And the landmines that I saw as we were going through the processes of defining what SharePoint was going to be for the organizations was all around HR. And I thought, this is not good. And this was 2005, so the world was very different. Think back 11 years, we were all in a very different place in our careers and our lives. So I went on my merry way, and I got to about 2010. And at that time, I was running my consulting firm, which was called eMark Consulting, and we had just merged eMark into a software company who has a product built on the SharePoint platform in the commercial real estate space. And I gave myself a mental few years to figure out exactly what I wanted to do next. And while we were doing this, I took note of exactly where the HR climate was in 2010. Again, very different to where it is today. So I spent my few years, and when that tenure came due, I took a really hard look at where the marketing landscape was as far as HR was concerned. Who was really hiring? What were they using to hire? What platforms were out there? How are people getting jobs? And I would say about half of you said you wanted to find something new for yourselves. So think about what you guys are doing right now and in trying to get that role. I looked around and I said, you know what? There are all sorts of companies that are trying to help you hire, but nobody is helping the organizations get the right information, right? What we have online are a number of marketplaces which connect people who are looking for jobs, connect people who are looking for jobs to employers. What it really does is spam mailboxes between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. while people send their resumes over to these organizations with a hope that they will actually read the information and deem the information relevant, and then you'll get a hit, right? Does this process sound familiar to everybody? Okay. So in 2013, 3 years after I had the original concept for Empty Cubicle, I started to do this evaluation and make this note. I started to chip away at what Empty Cubicle is going to be. So today, Empty Cubicle is the only verified resume source for job candidates and organizations to get the right information into the hands of the organizations that are doing the hiring. So put differently, we're the only job search and recruitment platform that verifies data and surfaces verified results into the hands of the employer. That's what we do. And the reason why I'm doing it is because nobody else is. And the reason why I'm the founder and CEO is because I had the passion, the drive, and the 15 years of experience to stand up and say, you know what? Nobody else is doing this. There is something to be done here. This is something that can be solved worldwide because it's a worldwide problem. And now's the time to do it. So that's what landed me in this seat, among others, apparently.
Okay, so let me just recap. Mitch, you started basically
Mitch,
from.
older than me, that's what.
Sorry? Sorry?
Mitch is older than me, that's what.
I didn't start with the age order.
I thought you were going to start in 1993.
He's just like, he's just nice. So you started, based on what I'm hearing, is that you quickly figure out what you like and you do not like to do. You just didn't find the first job to be fun, and then you started. But can I ask you, like, how many of you guys actually find the job you're having, like, it's actually fun nowadays? You actually do enjoy what you do. Okay. That means you should stay in that space and keep going. And the rest of you, I think you should find something that's more fun. Especially as your age, I think, like, life is too short. Like, you just have to find something more fun. Okay. How did you actually figure out that you hated it, or something that's much more fun for you?
It was easy. I just didn't like it. So, no. So I thought I was going to like it, right? Because there's the myth of this was. You get lured into this is the path where successful marketers. This is what they take, and I didn't know any differently, and I thought it sounded good. But when you get into the space, you just gotta look around. I would be at meetings, and I actually was told once that I wasn't allowed to be funny at work. Just wasn't appropriate. And I'm like, okay, so I can't tell any jokes, I can't have fun at work. I found you just have to be aware of when you come home from work, you go, what was a good day? And then what was a bad day? And if it's always more and more bad days, you got to look back and what are the things that sort of frustrate you? And what are the things where you feel you're being held back? And even the jobs that I didn't like to do, there was always something that I did like to do. And even what I would say for you guys is in your day-to-day work, what are the things that you find yourself doing, those tend to be the things that you like to do, right? You spend way more time on the things you like to do, or at least the time flies. What are the things you're doing when you look up, oh my God, it's been 3 hours. I didn't know, it felt like 10 minutes, right? And what's the stuff that's been 10 minutes? It felt like 3 hours, right? So be your own barometer, and it just started to accumulate that I was just really frustrated. I couldn't get things done fast enough. I couldn't be myself at work and develop relationships I wanted, and it just didn't move fast enough for me. And I didn't even know that there was something else out there. I just knew, that's why the story is when I went to the recruiter and he said, what are you looking for? Like, I didn't say I want this kind of marketing job. I said, I just want to go somewhere. I want to be, I knew what I didn't like. I said, I knew what I was missing. I want to be myself. I want to have fun. I want to make an impact and work with great people. And at the time, like there's way more companies that are doing that now. He pointed me in a direction, and I had no idea that that existed, and was very lucky to have ended up at Lavalife and then really enjoyed that culture.
So when you made that change, you didn't think about, were you hesitant to switch because money, or were you about to lose, or a house or car, anything?
No, so, and that's a good point. So later in my career, what I learned to do was I learned when I just wasn't happy. Like, well, why, if I'm not if I'm not happy in the job anymore? And it doesn't mean, like FreshBooks, I really like FreshBooks. I love it. I have such amazing friendships, even friendships at Lavalife. But the work just wasn't as satisfying for me anymore. I knew I was restless to do more and apply my brain in a different way and take on some different challenges. So I actually learned to leave rather than, eventually if you're not motivated, you're just going to get kicked out anyway because it's going to show up that way. I just learned through my own signals of, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. Let me go back and do the things that I really enjoyed doing. And that's what I was saying, if you like what you're doing, keep doing it. And I'll stay anywhere as long as I'm really enjoying the work. And if you're not anymore, things change all the time. Doesn't mean the company's bad or the people are bad. It's just the situation around you changes. So go find that thing that you really want to do. So I think most people kind of know when they're happy or they're not happy. But no, the worst thing you can do is stay in that situation, unless you absolutely, financially need to, and there's lots of good reasons to stay in a job. But those are some of the decisions I made.
So have a lot of courage. You need to take that leap of faith if you really hate your job. Carl, you're a serial entrepreneur. You didn't born this way, were you? Like how? Okay.
I was born this way.
In a suit.
In a suit. Yeah, in a suit. Maybe more black hair. But how did you?
That's not nice.
Hey, what are you valuing? I didn't say I would be nice. So how did you? Did you go corporate route right after school? Like what happened? Like what went wrong? that actually made you actually become on this, I guess, be on this unbeaten path.
Okay. You ready to give me the microphone now?
Oh yeah.
Wait, I want to clarify that.
Yes. My lawyers are waiting outside.
I have mine too. Don't worry.
Perfect. A couple questions before I answer that question. How many of you love what you do? How many of you have ever been fired from a job? How many of you have ever left a job on your own accord? How many of you are with the same company you were with X number of years ago? You've never left. You left a country.
The first part is me. I stay a company about 15 years.
15 years?
About 15 years.
Oh.
Right, but not I left.
Yeah. Okay. So the standard, because I look for standards, right? This is my role in consulting, was to find something we can all, common denominator. We can all work in the same path. And the standard here is that everyone has left a role, whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally. It happens. You've all left a role, so we all know what that feeling is, right? We know what the feeling is to get into a role, to be the new person, to make friends, or in some cases not make friends and not tell jokes. But you've all been involved in that process, right? And that's very critical because that process allows you to identify what you like and what you dislike about the various roles. We all know the analogy that the grass is always greener on the other side. Not true, right? This job sucks just like the last job sucked. What am I going to do now is what you end up thinking sometimes. And I know I say it with a great deal of charm, but it's true, right? At the end of the day, this is what happens sometimes. So the answer to the question is this. You know, when you put a bunch of type A personalities in a room, you get some very interesting answers out of them. And I learned very early on in my peer group with my friends that I was one of those type A's. Right? So when I was in school, when I was a kid, I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 years old, I was the one who was loud, disruptive. I was the one who was asking questions without being called on. I would put my hand up, do my thing. There's a very famous story in my family. We'll leave this in this room. And, of course, the video.
And the internet.
And the internet. There's a very famous story in my family that when I was 8 years old, the teacher asked me to do something. And I said no. And I didn't just say no. I said no. I got up. I put my jacket on. I walked out the door. I walked to the nearest tree, and I climbed to the top of it. That was followed only by the teacher coming out and begging me to come down. When I didn't, she went to the principal's office. The principal came out, begged me to come down. I didn't. Today, you would have a SWAT team out there, right, the whole thing. No. So my mother gets a phone call. Hello, Mrs. Riz? Yes, this is the principal calling. Yes, Eric's in a tree, and we can't get him down. Right, so I learned very early that if I didn't like something, and I wasn't passionate about it, I was out of there. And now I'm not a, you talk about a serial entrepreneur. I mean, cereal is for, you know, breakfast food and killers, as far as I'm concerned. You know, serial killers or the stuff that floats around in milk. And we don't want that, right? What you become is, in my case, I consider myself to be a very passionate person who follows my dreams. Right? I wanted to create a consulting company. I can almost say it. I wanted to create a consulting company, so I did. And I begged and pleaded and got customers. And guess what? They paid us. And when they paid us, I got more people who could follow my dream and my vision. And then we sold that to merge that into a software company, and we did it again. And then it was time to start Empty Cubicle, and now here I am. So yes, there are a number of ventures behind me and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's your passion, your drive, and you all indicated various levels of drive. It's your drive, your commitment to something else, which is going to carry you through. Because the only person who's going to carry you through the next days, weeks, months, years, whatever it's going to be, is you. Right? You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, yes, I can do this. I can make this happen. I have the contacts to do it. I have the drive to do it. I've done all of the business textbook stuff to make sure that my idea makes sense. You know, I'm not just going to go and start Uber because, well, there is one of those, and that's not really going to fly. Make sure that you've spent your time, but at the end of the day, it's you. You look in the mirror, you sign the checks, you know that you're the one who's going to drive this company forward, and you either know it or you don't. And if you don't, stay where you are, right? Maintain the safety of your current environment. Don't go out tomorrow and say, Eric said this or Mitch said that. I'm going to do this. Please don't do that. All right? I'll feel terrible. Mitch, I don't know about Mitch. He's not allowed to tell jokes. But follow your dream and your passion to a point that you are comfortable is the best advice that I can give you.
This is awesome. The motto of the community is actually we want to have a community of people who follow their dreams, and we want to help other people to see the living proof of people who follow their dreams and actually practice it. So more people can do that. Some questions specific about Empty Cubicle and specific about the growth tricks that you pulled on various companies.
Lots of tricks. All marketing is
She's gonna
all
ask me about evaluation.
Yes, exactly. You get prepared well while I'm grilling Mitch here. So, good, bad, and ugly. How did you grow, I guess take the company like Lava Life, take FreshBooks. What kind of tactics that you did actually to grow it? I think that's going to, like a lot of people, I would be very curious to know.
Sure. So what I discovered is it's almost the same kind of approach every time. So for me, what's that? Take notes. No, but so what I'm going to tell you is how I've been successful at growing companies. I can tell you there are hundreds of different ways from how I do it. But so what I'm going to tell you is the truth according to me, but not the truth globally. For me, it always starts with when I've started at companies, it's been early but not too early. So there's always been some existing customers. So
How big?
well, the smallest number of customers have been, I think, like 20,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So we had more at Lava Life and we had more at FreshBooks when I started. But the philosophy I have is someone has built this business to the point where there's already people that have found their way in and are buying it and using it, then the hypothesis is that if I can find more people like them, then they're going to want to come in and use it just like these people are. So when you're thinking about your business, so it's a little bit different. If you're starting from 0 customers and you're, right, then you want to think about who you're designing this product for. For me, everything starts with who. So who's the customer or the business owner or whoever market you're going after? Who are they and what's the problem that they're having? And the more you can think about like one person, the better. And then you want to prove that they're not the only person like that that has that problem, and that it's also a big enough problem that they're willing to do something about it. So again, for me, when I've started at companies, there's been some initial traction, and that's what I need, because this is how my brain works, is I go in and I talk to customers. And I ask them questions, and you can do this with people that could be your potential customers. It's easier once they've converted, and I get their story. So I said, tell me about you and your world. I don't even ask them about the product or anything, because I need to understand how they see themselves in the world and what they're dealing with. And our product and service, sometimes they naturally start talking about what that is, sometimes they don't. But they're going to first start telling you about their world. And now that I understand their world, I have a point that I can relate to them. I said, oh, you know, I could probably now point and identify other people out there, say, hey, is this you? Is this your world? Is this your world? Without even talking about my product. Then number 2 is it's a what happened. Like, you know, what happened that one day you decided you needed to do something to solve this problem that ultimately ended them up at our product or service. And then they'll tell you what happened. And, you know, something broke, or this is like the 10th time something happened, or they failed miserably at something 100,000 times. I couldn't hire anybody. I kept, you know, hiring 3 or 4 people for the same job, or I wasn't getting my invoices paid fast enough, or I hated following up with my clients to get paid. Or at Lavalife is, you know, I'm tired of people telling me that I should be meeting someone, and it's wrong to be single, and there's something wrong with me, right? You know, or I don't like to go to the bars and the clubs to meet people. It's just not for me, right? And what happens is I find when you talk to customers, you start to hear that there's a similar story around how their world works, and there's lots of common what happens. Because the what happened moment is going to be really, really important for you to also identify what is the, I call it the trigger, that's going to cause somebody to start considering using your product or service. And those are the 2 things. And then the third thing you want to find out, and maybe you've acquired some customers successfully, is where do they get their information? How do they learn about new things? Right? Are they on the internet? Are they like super busy? So Lavalife users, I mean at the time, you would define, you know, there's a personals section in the classified section of the newspaper when there used to be classifieds, and people used to put listings in the newspaper to sell their car or their refrigerator or their dining room set, or to meet other people. There would be personal ads. I don't know if this is like so foreign for everybody, but you go in classifieds, they have personal ads, right? So, you know, this is where people went to find someone to date. So we just put our ads in the personals, and eventually they created a new section in the newspaper called telephone classifieds, right? And we also knew, we eventually learned that the thing that we were solving at Lavalife for customers is the problem we were solving was loneliness. It wasn't actually about finding the perfect soulmate. In fact, our customers said, that's up to me to find the perfect person. I just need Lavalife to help me find people to interact with and meet. So we also found that people, by talking to them, were really lonely. They're out Saturday night, they go to the bar and the club, they come home, they got a little, we call it liquid courage, right? They've had some beers, but they're home and they're watching TV late at night, and they're alone again, and they're lonely. So we decided to run some direct response TV ads on late night television. And because that was a perfect time and place, when they, you know, the triggers of what happened, well, I went out, I came home alone, and I'm by myself, and I'm feeling lonely, so why not be right there at that time and say, well, why not pick up the phone and call now and talk to somebody? And so now you see, if you've had, I don't know if anyone's seen them, if you're up late night watching TV, they're still running those ads. So it was all about understanding where to be. I'll give a couple more examples and then I'll stop talking how the similar model works. So at FreshBooks, we were selling to web designers and graphic designers. I didn't know a lot about them, but we had enough customers that we were running a survey. And I threw into the survey, tell me about the blogs and the websites that you visit. And it was a simple matter of getting the survey results, printing them out on a stack of paper, opening up Excel and starting to type in, you know, the list of things that they said, and then just putting like a check mark against every time something was mentioned more than once. It was as simple as that, and I quickly discovered, does anyone know what Drupal is? Does anyone know Drupal? No. Drupal? So Drupal is some kind of programming language or something. I didn't even know what Drupal was, but it came up a lot as a website people went to. But we identified about 10 different websites that all of our customers seem to visit. So going back to that initial theory that, well, if today's customers are going to these websites, then I got to imagine other people going to those websites are also going to want our product and service. So it's a matter of, you won't even believe, this was before there were banner ads, okay? So I'm like pre-internet. But we would go and I went and talked to the blog owners. I would reach out to them and I'd say, I'm from FreshBooks and I'd love to buy a banner on your website. And it was like $50 or $25 for a whole month. It was incredible. And eventually we were all over those websites. And we just kept learning about where they were and what they did. And the last example I'll give you is at ClearFit, where we were selling a hiring solution for small business owners that didn't know anything about hiring. They hated hiring. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. They wanted good people, but they couldn't even write a job description. So what we learned was there was a surface level of people that was really painful for these people. What was the trigger is they needed to hire, because when they weren't thinking about hiring, they didn't think about it. And we found that they were going into Google, I was telling Eric, and they would type in things like, you know, find employees, you know, hire a chef, you know. It was that simple, right? And we also knew that they weren't on the internet, they weren't on Facebook, they weren't on LinkedIn, they weren't on Twitter. We talked to them, they were all really busy, they're in their cars, they're driving around. So we tried some satellite radio. We said, well, if we're in the radio, at least we can sort of catch them where they are. And that ended up being really successful for us because they listen to the radio when they're in their cars. And that was the only time that they could engage with content when they weren't too busy running their business. So, and in all of those scenarios, when we wrote our radio ad, we wrote more about, is this you, right? Hey, you know, are you struggling with this? Are you struggling with that? And we can help. And that's really all they wanted to hear, that yes, that describes me really well, I can help. So then you pull everything together and I got all that information from our existing customers, right? And you piece it together to, is this you? Find the channel, and then obviously there's all kinds of things you got to do the back end to make sure you convert them. But so understand their context. What's the world like for them? What are the triggers that could cause them to want to do something about something? And then where are they getting their information? And those are sort of the tricks that aren't really tricks. It's just common sense when you think about it.
Okay, so are you telling me the biggest online dating site in Canada was like born on the newspaper personal section?
100%. And in the back of Now magazine, we had about 8 or 9 pages. I don't know if you know, it's Now magazine still around, right? In the alternative weekly newspaper and the daily newspapers. Yeah.
How did you convert them online?
There was no online. It started out as a telephone service. They had to phone a phone number, right? So, but
that was when you dialed with keys, guys.
Yeah, yeah. You dial in, and you had to navigate through. You know, press 1 for this, 2 for this, 9 for this. So it actually works very much the same as a web business did. So as soon as they call in, you want to start. You want to get them a membership, or you want to get them a trial, or you want to get them have an ad recorded. Because if they get an ad recorded, then someone can respond to the ad. And as soon as you get a message in your mailbox, you're told, hey, you've got new messages, right? And like, what are you going to do? You're gonna buy to get the message. So there's a whole other 3 hours I can talk about that. But it's actually where I learned all about online marketing, was before it was online. And we were just doing really direct marketing into a funnel. And it was really a funnel on a telephone system, because you can only, just go this way. I mean, just the phone. But and you learned a lot about navigating and directing people to how they could be successful.
So if I'm hiring you to say, I have this company and I need to grow, are you going to tell me I know exactly how to grow you, or are you going to tell me, like, I have no idea at this point.
Idea. So how could I possibly know without even knowing who your customers are and what you're trying to do, right? So every time I've started a new job, the exciting part is not knowing for me, right? I don't want to know. If I knew the answers, then where's the fun in that, right? So, and I enjoy the process of discovering all of these things. You know, we've just gone through it again at Fun Through, and it's, for me, that's the exciting part of marketing, and why when those things start to be, when a business gets big enough that there's different challenges of scale, then that's good, but I just really like the other parts. So the fun part for me is not knowing and then figuring it out and then seeing the business grow as a result.
Wow. I think that's great stories. Real stories. The good and bad and ugly, that's great.
I didn't get to the ugly yet.
Okay, reserve that.
Apparently that's what I'm here for.
That's right, that's right.
You guys can have a match. Now over to you, Eric. We are going to talk about evaluation. And something specific to your business, because like you're in a different world a little bit. How did you get the starting capital? How did you get the starting customers? And how do you build the whole thing? Like just...
That's a short answer.
I'm sure you'll find something.
Was it A?
That's a very long answer. But before I answer that, I just wanted to tell you guys one thing. Listen to everything that Mitch is saying about marketing, because everything that he just said, you can't read in a textbook. Okay, he was dead on in his answer, and I met him 45 minutes ago, so I have no reason to say this other than the fact that he gave me his water. So, but in all sincerity, listen to everything he's saying about marketing, because I'm not a great marketer. He's killing it. So just there you go. How did we do what we did at Empty Cubicle? It's probably the hardest question you can ask me, because when you wake up one day and you think, I'm going to go and do this, and suddenly you wake up, 2 years later, and you're doing it, and things are happening, and you have a team, and you have money in the bank, and we're growing, and we have beta customers, and we have all these things. You know, the funniest thing to me is when somebody else in my company emails me, and they have an email address that says @EmptyCubicle after their name, because Empty Cubicle was this dream that I had. Right? This is something that I get asked the question all the time. How did you think of the name Empty Cubicle? And I literally had the name in the shower. What am I going to call this thing? And even though 1 out of 10 people that calls us thinks we do something in real estate, they think that we're selling cubicles. I got an RFP last week from somebody who's trying to buy like 1,000 cubicles.
Did you send him a quote?
And I sent him a quote. I tried to find somebody who would do it and take a cut out of it, because that's an entrepreneur, right? You don't just you don't not respond. You say, "Oh, for 20%, I'll answer your question." So it's a really hard question to answer. How did we get our first money? How do we get the first of everything? Because the first of everything is always the most difficult. So what did I do in the process? I went away and spent my Christmas holiday 2.5 years ago, whenever Christmas was, usually in December. I went away, and it was me and my laptop, and I created our first deck. Right? You have to have a pitch deck, because you have to have a pitch deck. So I created this first pitch deck, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I was waking up at 2 in the morning, and I was working on it, and then I was up again at 5 in the morning. And the smartest thing that I did, the best thing that I did, and something that you should all be doing if you're going to follow your entrepreneurial dream and path, is sleep with a pad of paper and a pen beside your desk, beside your bed. Unless you sleep at your desk, in which case that makes sense. But sleep with a pad of paper and a pen beside your bed, because the strangest things will come to you in the middle of the night, and you need to record them. Okay, this works. I've woken up in the morning with zero recollection of, well, that's different, but zero recollection of writing it down, and there's something on the pad, and presumably it was me that wrote it. Right? You have strange things, and don't think, believe me, don't think, well, if I had this idea, I'll just take out my phone, because most people have their phones, very close to them. I'll just put it into my phone. You don't do it, okay? But a pen you will pick up and you will jot something down. So take that with you. But I created this deck, and I have my Microsoft connection, and I have my business connections, and I'm very fortunate. I've worked for some of the largest companies in the world. I've consulted for the Walt Disney Company, Pepsi, Kellogg's. That's cereal, if you're wondering. And working with these guys has given me, everybody moves over time. So it's given me access and a network of thousands of people that I'm connected to, and I don't mean LinkedIn, I mean really connected to, where I can reach out to them and say, hey, does this make sense to you? And that's something that you need to have, right? You need to have that network. You guys all have a network, even if it's in this room and you have 20 people, this is a great network. So leverage your network, because those are the people that will give you that first start. So I created my presentation, I created my deck, I was really proud of it. I came back and I started just to knock on the doors of really smart people. And some of them even answered the door. Right? A true entrepreneur will always give you 5 minutes. When somebody asks you, hey, can I ask you a quick question? I don't mean on the street. I mean, you're in a building or something, or in a meeting. Hey, do you mind if I ask you a quick question? The answer is always yes. You need 5 minutes of my time? Absolutely. You need an hour of my time? Very different. But if you have a quick question, no problem. I'll always ask it and defer to Mitch to answer it. But as far as where we went from the deck process was knock on doors, have conversations. And let me tell you, those first conversations were really bad. Not bad for us, but they were very hard to hear. Because the first thing people do is they'll say one of a handful of things. Who else is doing it? Why is nobody, if it's a good idea, they say, why is nobody else doing it? Why do you, I shouldn't count that way. Why do you think that you're going to be able to do it? And how are you going to do it? And this, I'm not even asking them for money. Okay? I'm just trying to figure out whether my concept makes sense. So while I was doing this, and in this process, I decided that I'm going to go to the Mars website. Is everyone familiar with Mars? Mm-hmm. Right? University and college. So that's where our office is now. And I say now because we're moving, we're growing out of there. So we're moving in the next month or so. And a bunch of you are in real estate, so talk to me afterwards, please. Because we haven't found a place to go yet, but we need to get out. And I went onto the Mars website, and I followed the entrepreneurial process, and I followed their path, and I spent about 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon answering all their questions, which is essentially writing a business case, just in their form. And I went through this process, and I was really proud of the work that I'd done, because whenever you take something you've done version 1 and you make it version 2, you improve it, you make it better. And I was proud of what we had, and I clicked submit. And I got this pop-up that came up and said, congratulations, we'll get back to you in 4 to 6 weeks if we like you. And I thought, well, that really sucks. Right? Well, I don't want to wait 6 weeks. If it's good, let me know it's good. As it was, I left it, went on about my weekend, and I sort of made a start on my calendar. Okay, this is the day that we did this for Mars. And I continued having my conversations. That was Saturday at about 5 o'clock. Wednesday at 2, I had an email and a phone call from Mars. Hey, come in and talk to us about your idea. So one of 2 things happened. Either it was an extremely low period of time, and somehow we were above the fray in the number of texts they received over that weekend, or we were onto something. And that was the first time somebody cared about what we were building. So from there, as they say, the rest is history, right? We kept digging, we kept clawing our way through and having tough conversations. Even today, conversations like that happen all the time. You have to be passionate, going back to the marketing side, the entrepreneurial side. You have to be super passionate about what you're building. You have to believe that you're going to get customers. So over the past year and a half or so, whatever it is, since we officially put our shingle up, we've been able to attract the attention of 32 customers, 32 beta customers, who are now waiting for us to finish the beta so that they can go into private beta, which should happen before the rest of my hair goes gray. That was a good joke, guys. I'm giving you gems here. So we're hopefully going into that private beta in the May-June timeframe. And these are household name companies, a lot of them. And that I was able to do that and build that based on contacts, based on my name and credibility in the Microsoft world and the consulting world with some of the companies that I mentioned. And although I can't officially say that any of them are using it or might be using it, but it was half networking and half passion. Because when you're passionate about what you're building and what you're doing, it comes across, right? I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. I don't sleep a whole heck of a lot, but I'm still sitting here and my foot is still moving and I'm still thinking about what's happening. So if you sit across from somebody who is, and not everyone's like this, but somebody who is truly passionate about what they're building, you know before they open their mouth that they are doing something that they love. And I love Empty Cubicle. I love what we're building. I love the fact that we're going to be able to not just put a product in market that's going to help people get jobs and actually make them better people because they'll be on to their next role and properly, but we're going to save time, we're going to save money, we're going to be more efficient and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're solving a worldwide problem. And anybody who's ever read a resume and said, you know, this resume is no good, and I don't mean your own, I mean somebody else's, right? There's something on there that's not perhaps 100% correct, you're not the only one. And 70% of resumes that are looked at by organizations are tossed very early on before they get a phone call. So that is how we created Empty Cubicle and what we did to get to this point.
Our capital and your evaluation. Don't dodge the bullet. Yeah.
Told me I wouldn't have to pay. I'd pay for parking.
I can reverse you. That's all right.
How do we get money? So you get to a point where, first of all, you're not going to make money on day one. I don't care what you say or what you do or what you have, unless you start off with something that's like a stock item, and you work at a bakery, and you bought all of the ingredients, and you suddenly have this beautiful cupcake. You're going to go and sell the cupcake. Okay, you can make money very quickly, but you had to have the money to get the ingredients, so that's got to come out of pocket somewhere. Your goals, your ambitions of what you think you're going to do have to be kept in check, and I'm very bad at keeping myself in check. I always think we're going to be 6 months farther than we are, and everybody else has to knock me back into place to make sure that I don't go sell something that hasn't been built yet, which happens every now and then. But the answer is, I went to our early seed round people, and I said, this is what I'm building, and this is how we are valuing the company, and this is what we could be doing. And I used a lot of big words that people didn't understand. Because that built, I'm not saying that's why they wrote checks, but I'm saying it doesn't hurt. You know, our play, as far as Empty Cubicle goes, on day one, if you sat down with me, I would say things like, it's a big data play. Right? The excitement is everywhere. And people like that. You know, you have to look at what you intend to build and figure out more than one use for that product. So what we're building in Empty Cubicle is a massive database of stuff, right? But we are tuning it, and the algorithms parse it, and the algorithms produce a data set that is unlike any other data set in the world. And that's when people say, oh, wow, what else can you do with that? Can it be used for marketing? Can it be used for different things, I can't go into too much detail, different things, different components, different elements than just becoming this verified resume source? Because when you think verified resume, verified profile, you think about like getting a job, okay? You don't think about marketing unless you're in marketing. So how can I leverage that information and make it of value to somebody else? So think about this in a very real context. How many of you used Uber? Airbnb? Okay, so let's go with Uber. So Uber, very smart car crowd sourcing thing, right? Hit the button, car arrives, amazing, right? You hop in, you go to where you're going, and you're done. The best part is it goes on your credit card, you never see the bill. Right? So you go like really far, and it costs you whatever it costs you. You don't care because you're having a great time. And at the end of the month, the bill comes and you have to figure out how to pay it all. But think about the data that is behind Uber, right? Uber's freaking brilliant. We'll bleep that out later. Right? Uber is brilliant for what they're doing, but the amount of information that they have can be used in so many different contexts. It hasn't been yet, as far as I know, and please correct me if you've heard differently, but they should be marketing the actual data to city planners to figure out how many cars are on the road or doing specific routes over a period of time. So on a Saturday night, I would love to know how many cars drive right down Avenue Road into the core of the city and drop people off. That's using the data that's out there, which Uber doesn't care about. They care about how many cars they need to get in a certain area to be effective for their customers. They don't care which roads they use. That's an example of using that data for better purposes. Right? You can do traffic patterning to figure out which lights should be, red at this time and green at that time, and so on and so forth. That's a great use of that information, but for right now, they're not using it. Those are the types of things that people look at you when you have an idea, and they say, wow, he hasn't, or they haven't just thought of this particular use for their product, but they also have this use, and this use, and this use. So if they succeed at the first one, everything else are dominoes, and they all fall into place.
Who gave you money in the first place?
Friends and family.
Great lesson for everybody. Treat your family nice and treat your friends nice.
And me. Let's be honest, it was me.
And what's your first round of capital?
More than $1, less than $1 million.
Okay. Average that out. And
This is fun. It's like a game show.
Sure. How much is your evaluation right now?
More than $1, less than $100 million.
Can you up the dollar a little bit?
More than $2. Well, let me put it this way. So take my example of Uber and the use of the information, the use of the data, which I saw some people nodding because it makes a lot of sense. The city planners would use that information to better, right, the infrastructure. Because anybody who drives in Toronto, who drives in Toronto?
I think everyone.
Is that a fun experience for you? Absolutely not. I've lost tires and into potholes and different things and scratched cars over time, not just my own. But driving is not a fun thing in the city because the infrastructure is terrible. Go to Boston, go to New York, of all places. They keep the road nice and even. If anyone's been on Avenue Road just north of Bloor in the past few weeks, it's like driving on a mountain, right? It's not, and there's no snow. Don't even tell me there's snowbanks. There's no snow. So if you develop a use and a good use case for what you're building, I can explain to you exactly what we're building within Empty Cubicle and the big data play and the technologies that we're building off of and how the algorithms are going to not just take HR data, but I'll just call it other data in the future and be able to apply the verified methods against our algorithms. So now you're looking at a truthful system in all sorts of different contexts. So I can very easily give you 10 different uses of our system, of our algorithms, of our databases, of our parsing engines, of all of this stuff, and build out that story for you. So that's why it's more than $2, but less than $100 million at this point. Because we've been able to not just substantiate what we are doing, what we intend to do with the information, how the algorithms, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, how those algorithms can be tuned into other areas as we move forward.
You're not a developer. How did you put that off?
I hired smart people.
I will tell them, like, I envision a sea, and I envision, like, I'm walking in the middle of it without getting wet.
Well, the first thing I did, does anybody know what a Microsoft MVP is? I should have asked this.
Most valued what?
MVP, most valuable professional. So what that means is that Microsoft acknowledged my thought leadership in the SharePoint space 4 years ago now, and it's something which is very well known in the technical world. If you're a Microsoft MVP in .NET or another technology, then you know your coding very well. I had to trailblaze and explain to Microsoft that there are people out there with a lot of ideas who aren't technical. And I was one of the first people that they actually applied this title to in a non-technical sense. But I have lots of friends who are super smart and very technical. So the first thing I did, well, one of the first things that we did after creating the deck was I turned to world-renowned experts, other MVPs in various spaces, and I said, hey, can you guys go and do this for me? And it cost me a couple of dinners and a few bottles of scotch for each of us. And they figured it out. And that was the first time that we realized, wow, I asked them to, I can't say it on camera, but I asked them to, if you've ever heard the phrase, call something, something. The second word is bull. So I asked them to call bull on me. Tell me if we can't do this. I won't be hurt. Just tell me if we can't do it. But if you can do it, show me. And we had this bare bones thing up and running in no time. Now, again, I'm very fortunate, I recognize, because I was able to tap into that community. But you'd be amazed at the people that are out there that will help you and get behind your dream.
And nobody actually went behind your back and say, I'm taking this idea and I'm running with it.
No.
You're a nice guy.
They were all sworn to secrecy. They all signed NDAs. It was all ironclad.
And even at that point, it's just dinner and scotch.
You have to know your customers. You have to know your audience.
There you go.
Wow. That's very different than what I heard from you. You're totally on a different path. So basically, from what I'm hearing, how you got started is your own equity, family, friends, strong passion, and borrowed a lot of resources from the people and the places you've gone to in the 10 years of your life. That's all built up to what you are today. Okay, that's another way, I guess, that works for
some of us.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Well, you look at Eric, who's passionate about, he's an entrepreneur, right? So
Right.
he's about creating business and about creating things, right? And I tried that also, thanks. I learned that I wanted to be entrepreneurial within an entrepreneurial company. So I get passionate working for passionate founders, right? So I'm going to echo a couple of things that Eric said. One is, if you're going to start your own business, your real belief and passion for what you're going to do is going to be the most important thing that you have, because you're going to need to enroll other people and engage them in that concept and idea. Because early on, when you're building your company, there's not a lot of money to pay people. All there is this dream and this vision. And even for, you got 10, 12, 30, you're not even there yet, right? So, and that's how people are that's going to be the fuel for your company. People are going to come into work every day because they believe in that purpose and in that vision, and they believe in the same thing that you believe in. So the more, if you ever waver from that, then everything is going to fall down, because you're that center point. You're creating that vision of the future, and you're creating what they call the why. Is it pink? It's why you're here. We're here to build this thing, to deliver this value that is missing from the world, right? Whether it's, peace on earth, or whether it's a good interest rate on something, right? If you don't have passion, then nothing really is going to happen, right? You're not going to drive yourself. You won't find the funding. You won't be able to, even people won't even come out for the scotches and the dinners, right? And they'll dismiss it. So for me, as someone that's worked, I kind of choose the founders that I work with. And the first thing is that I really have to believe that they really deeply believe in what they're trying to do, that they're not faking, and they're not in it for the money. I mean, there's going to be money at the end of this thing, but good God, there's no money for a long time, right? For a lot of investors and a lot of founders. So they have to, yeah, it's true. They have to care, right? So I look for someone that really has a strong vision of what they want to do, and they really believe it, because I want them to lead, and I want to support them in that vision, and that's why people will work with you early on. It's why they'll invest in your company, because they see the passion, they buy into the vision. So if you're thinking about starting your own business, it's vital. I did start my own business once because I thought maybe I would like to do that, and I learned that I didn't. But I found a co-founder who was very passionate about creating a dating site after I didn't want to do dating anymore for single parents, right? He was just committed to doing this, and he was trying to find someone in Toronto that knew about online dating. And I did. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I did it for 9 years. Good God, why would I want to do it anymore, right? But when he told me about it, I really rethought that whole category. I said, wow, wouldn't that be awesome to help single parents meet other single parents for relationships, because it was really hard for them to meet. And he sold me on that vision that we decided to co-found this company together. And it started with me with purpose of why. I said, this feels like a good thing to do, and it feels like something that I can get behind, and I think we can do something worthwhile. And so, it's great to have people like Eric that build this passion and really are committed to doing things, and will find a way to make things happen. So think for yourself. It comes back to our first thing about follow your passion and share that. Wait, sorry, can I just...
So there's a few things I just wanted to share. I have to organize my thoughts, which isn't easy for me. As the founder, and one of the most important things you need to have are a group of mentors behind you, right? And this can be anybody. You know who's mentoring you and who isn't. A mentor can't be a friend who comes over for dinner and sits and watches TV with you. It has to be somebody in business who's going to be able to really represent your idea properly and give you honest feedback, because you need that, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to recognize that all decisions at one point or many points fall on your shoulders, right? Do you guys know how many colors of suits Barack Obama has?
2 or 3?
This is not a joke.
Very few.
2.
Yep.
gray and blue. Not black, not brown, not whatever other colors I have. You'll only see him in blue and gray. Now, anybody know why?
Consistency.
Close.
Doesn't like wasting time.
Doesn't want to waste any time. Doesn't want to make a decision. Right? The guy never goes into his closet and says, what goes with these shoes? Right? Which suit should I wear today? It's going to be really cold in the Oval Office. Right? It's one less decision he doesn't have to make. And when you're the founder, when you're the entrepreneur, when you're the CEO, when you're the janitor, you are everything in between. You are all of those things. My phone's ringing. That's only happened one other time in this conversation. You have to recognize that all decisions fall into you. So the support of your team is massively important, because without it and without them, you can't get the stuff that you need to get done. Always remember that if you have 8 of your people in one room for 1 hour, you just burned a day of time, a day of effort, which means make sure you got everything you wanted to get across over the course of that hour, or don't call the meeting. And I am dogmatic about that with my team. You don't call 4 people together for 2 hours. You just burn a day. Days are spent many different ways. So let's make sure we're doing it properly. Understand that as the founder, as the CEO, as the entrepreneur, whatever you're going to be, you are going to have every title in an organization, and the best way to grow your team is to bestow the title onto yourself before you give it to somebody else. If you're hiring a program manager or a product manager, we just hired a product manager, I think that's what he's called. He's called a product manager. I have to know that job inside and out in order to help him get and succeed as he wants to.
But do we always hire people who are smarter than us? And who are more expert in that field?
You always hire people, I mean, always is a big word. You should, when you're hiring, you should, I'll not shoulds, I don't like to demand, but I'll say the way that I do it, which is I always hire experts in their field. So if I'm hiring a product manager, that person should be an expert product manager. If I'm hiring a VP of operations and partnerships, that person should be an expert in their field. I have no background in HR, other than the fact that I've been hired and fired and left organizations, which makes me pretty good, actually. But as far as having teeth and having depth in human resources, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have those contacts. Right? I have the contacts to call up Kellogg's and say, hey, you guys need to use this. And they will, because I can sell it, and I can sell the vision, and I can sell the usage, and I can sell the why, and I can find out what they're doing now and what's broken, and I can fix it. But I can't create the value statements the way they need to hear it. He can do that. The other thing that I'm always doing, I'm always selling my organization, and I don't mean for a check. I mean I'm always selling Empty Cubicle, but I'm always hiring. So I know which of you said you're looking for a job, and we'll talk about that afterwards. I'm always hiring for our company. When I can't afford it, I'm hiring for our company. Because if you're not taking those chances along the way, what are you doing? Right? You've got to take those chances. You have to know, you have to always be selling. I have had some of the strangest, funniest conversations on a plane. I travel a lot. On a plane beside somebody else who is totally eating up what I'm saying, and I had no idea they were going to be there. I would love to be sleeping or listening to music, sometimes both, but you've got to always be on. Yes, sir?
So that was very telling. So you create champions within, for example, Kellogg, as you said. So you have champions right across that organization, Google, Microsoft, that are champions for you. I'm suggesting it.
Okay. I'm just to be clear.
I'm suggesting it.
Yes.
That's a great way.
If you can sell your organization, if I can, let me give you an example. If I can have the passion to excite the 20 people in this room, and you guys are all going to go back to your organizations tomorrow and think, we met this guy last night, and he was talking about this thing, and it's HR, and you go and talk to your HR person. I've done my job, right? I have to be able to explain my vision and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it to the point that you can all go and be salespeople for me. and I don't mean hiring internally, I mean go to your organizations tomorrow and talk about empty cubicle. Then I've done my job properly. We're getting to the Q&A part now.
Yeah. So also ask away. Before that, are you living your dreams and having a good time? A bit of a philosophical question.
That's a hard question to answer. I love what I do, but there are so many important things to me, and my business is one of them. My family is incredibly important to me. I have a 7-month-old daughter. I can show you guys pictures later. She's super cute. Thank God she looks like my wife. My daughter, she is everything to me. So, you know, the consideration to come here tonight meant that I couldn't put her to bed. That kills me. Right? You only get so many. Don't laugh at that. It's not funny. But that seriously, it's so important to me to be there when she goes to sleep and put her to bed and all the rest of it. You have to have other passions outside of your business. I am a hugely, as you may imagine, a hugely competitive sportsman. So I play every sport where I can beat the guy beside me. And I'm not always good at doing that. So I ride a bike 4 times a week. I play hockey. I play golf. I do all sorts of things so that I'm always challenging myself and challenging others, trying to challenge others. But I have a million interests. So yeah, I'm living my dream.
Great. Well, and thanks for coming out. Your time is very precious. I know.
I'll show you guys pictures after, she said.
Are you living your dreams and having a good time?
I am now. No. You know, I'm doing what I want to be doing. I'm doing it with great people, and we're building something together. Of course, I agree 100% with Eric. Work can't be everything. I'm someone, when I did have my own consulting business, I called it Think, Mitch, Think, because I'm just always thinking. But that's fun for me. So even when I'm not working, I'm thinking about things that can help with work, or I'm working on other things to help my kids solve problems, or to, you know, if there's stuff that needs to get done, you know, people are stuck, and they need to, you know, I spend a lot of time meeting other folks, sometimes a lot of kids at university that are looking for advice and counsel on what to do with their careers and what to do, and even some people that have been in careers for a long time that are in transition. That's something else that I really enjoy doing with my time, is meeting with other people and helping them sort of solve some problems and get some breakthroughs in terms of finding their path to really enjoy what they're doing at work, because I still think if you're happy at work, then you're just going to be a lot happier at home, because you bring that back with you, right? If you come home and you're miserable, that's going to affect you, and well, some people can handle that, they go home and it's fine, but it's such a big difference, and I know even for myself, when I'm really happy at work, I'm a lot happier in the other areas of my life. So when both are working, then that's the best scenario. But I haven't played hockey in a long time because it ended up getting too late for me.
So guys, living proof, you can live your dreams. You can live your dreams and pursue your dreams, like living proof here. Okay, great. Q&A.
Yes, sir.
So for question for Eric, I'm just very curious about how your algorithm works. So without having us sign an NDA, can you just elaborate a little bit about what's the process of your algorithm that can make the hiring process more efficient?
That's an excellent question. Let's put it this way. The same common denominators that I talked about. Sorry. The same common denominator that I talked about earlier, where, you know, when I speak at a million different events every year. 2 years ago, I did 18 different events over the course of the calendar year, and I'm used to standing up in front of 1,000 people and just starting to talk. And of course, I have very pretty slides behind me that distracts them from what I'm saying. But I find the common denominator in the room, and I ask that very early on. So if I'm talking to users of a particular software, I start to ask questions about what it is. I think there's someone at the door. I ask questions about what it is they're doing to pool them together. And those common denominators in conversation are easy to ask, right? How many of you have been hired, fired, so on and so forth, right? You guys pooled yourselves accordingly. So once you have that camaraderie, you have a community. Once you have a community, you call it something, right? Executives with impact. You call it the Bay Street, whatever you call it, you call it. Those things on a resume are easy to identify, which means if you look at a resume and you don't have those consistencies, you can't pool that information together properly, then there may be, and I'm giving you a very vague answer, but I'm also giving you a very specific answer, there may be reasons as to why those consistencies aren't there. So if you take, you can try this, go on to a website where you can download resumes and see if you can find 10 resumes in the same basic period of time. So pick, 2010 to 2015. Download 10 resumes from the same organization in that period of time, and then take out 10 highlighters in different colors and highlight the things that are similar on each of them in the different colors, and then see what you get. What you get is a community. What you get are the same stories. We call them stories. You get the stories and similar stories amongst all the resumes. So everything that you highlight in yellow is a story, and there's consistencies there, so you can build off of that story.
Okay.
That sort of answer your question?
So if I get this right, if you guys together can really put something together. So he's trying to find the pattern within among different groups of customers. You have the algorithm to find the pattern.
Well, he's trying to find customers that want money. We want that, but in a different context. He's trying to find people that are going to put out a 60-day invoice, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, because I heard it for the first time from you tonight. And he's going to accelerate payment to them, knowing that they're good customers and they're going to.
I think he's saying just as a marketer. So I would help him find the customers that needed to solve the problem that he was solving, and make sure that I would understand what the world is they're dealing with and how we fit into that and how to reach them, right? Yeah. And then how to do that faster and faster and more and more and more. It's simplest.
There's a way you find these amazing partners to come all together.
Like I said, you're always selling.
Exactly.
You're always selling your business, you're always selling your concept, and your eyes are always very wide open for the people that can accelerate your goals.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you were first. Very close, but you were in first. So your hand like
So just to follow up that question, how did you initially come up with the idea? Because from what I heard, you're working within Microsoft doing SharePoint, but that's somewhat not so relevant to resume screening or that kind of stuff. Like, how did you initially thought about this idea? And also, are there any other ideas you initially thought about, but then said, oh, no, probably not? Like, was there anything like that, or?
The initial idea came from conversations with people.
Okay.
You may have noticed I like to talk. And the commonalities, especially in the SharePoint space, the common things that we were always solving for customers were exactly that, right? Say it differently. The issues that we were solving for customers were common amongst all of them. So you can't take Kellogg's problems and just apply them to Walt Disney, right? Because they have different problems. But if you write down all the problems that people have had, you notice the similarities and the patterns. Now, the reason I started down this path with Empty Cubicle, excuse me, was because I was the one who was aggravated. When I needed to hire somebody, it was really painful to do it. I don't have time to read through 500 resumes. We put a post online, this was in the SharePoint days. We would put a post online in 2008 that we needed somebody with SharePoint experience from 2007 and 2013. 2003 rather, that didn't sound right. And overnight, we would have like 200 resumes that had come in. I don't have time to read through 200 resumes. That was overnight, right? And then you know what people do? They send different resumes with their name on it. And then they send, I've had people who sent the same resume with 2 different names on it. People, that was a bad day. I was pissed off that day. People do this, right? Because I want the job. And I think I'm the best person for that job. But the issue is, it's unmoderated. Right? You can apply filters and things if you're the company that you want certain things, this and that. I mean, I could talk for 4 hours about LinkedIn, but I won't. But those issues of time and of effort that goes into trying to find somebody, they never go away, bless you. You are always looking for that individual, right? So if there's 500 resumes printed out, on a stack, on a desk. You're going to read through all of them because you need one person. And your hope is that I'm going to find that one person in there. What happens when you don't find that one person in there? You repost the job. So you just paid somebody else an extra whatever, X dollars, to do all this again. And you know what happens? The same dude who didn't get a job the first time is going to send you his stuff again. And that sucks. So if I use the word sucks, it means I have to fix it. Because nobody else is fixing it. And all of the, if you look at the space, everybody who's out there has just created a marketplace for companies to post their jobs and people to send their stuff over. The first thing that we did at Empty Cubicle, you're like this, is we created part of the algorithm to parse out the executive summary and search, I'll just say search, for that content somewhere else on the web. Which means if you went and found your executive summary on somebody else's resume or a website that exists, we're going to find it. How cool is that? And we're going to know that these 10 resumes all have the same or similar executive summary. So they all get tossed out because they're not authentic. It saves me time going through that process and building that tool so that I can hand a customer 5 resumes, 5 profiles and say, these are all Empty Cubicle verified. Now I feel like I'm just selling.
That's cool. Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Just as a marketer. So when I was working at ClearFit, we had a competitor called ZipRecruiter, because we were both helping small businesses just post jobs and find people. And the problem that we had, one of the best things that it did for me is help us sharpen, and I'm going to get back to why that was important, sharpen and refine our message, because it sounded like we were both saying the same thing, but they had like $100 million to spend a week, and we didn't. So we were getting completely drowned out. So our message became irrelevant. And what we knew was we had to dig deeper into the problem that we were solving. And what we learned was ZipRecruiter was promoting about how many resumes, in overnight they can get you like tons and tons of resumes. Well, what we knew was exactly what Eric said is when it comes to hiring, the last thing you want is a whole stack of resumes to have to pile through. And that actually became our whole new campaign, is we stopped focusing on finding applicants. We went down that next level. So even if they tried ZipRecruiter, then eventually they'd come over to ClearFit, because our promise was, it's time to hire. The last thing you want to do is sort through a stack of resumes. What you really want to do is you want to find and hire the right person in there. And so when you hear, it's just, when I hear someone say, I got this stack of resumes, I don't have time to go through a stack of resumes, that's the kind of thing that when you're looking at your audience, you're just going to hear over and over and over again. You want to, and even though we didn't start there, we started with a higher order thing, that actually ended up being the real critical point that made us different. And so I just wanted to call out, because it's fun to hear somebody play back to me the thing we heard 1,000,000 times before, and it happens everywhere, of validating that that the message started with saying, when it's time to hire, the last thing you want to do is have a huge stack of resumes to pile through. Is the first response you want someone to go is, yes, that is completely true. Now I've got the retention. Anyway, so I just wanted to jump on that as an example.
Ideal profiling.
I don't know why I'm moderating, but yes, please, in the back.
I actually have a question for both of you. So things are very difficult at the beginning, and once you grow your company, you're getting like a bigger customer base. It's like a snow effect. It's getting easier. So my question is at which point do you get to the stage that you grow your customer base exponentially? How long does it take? And then let's say from 0 customer to 1,000, 4,000 to 10,000. What different tactics you're using?
I thought you were going to ask when it gets better, which I don't have an answer to, because I'm not sure when it gets better, but it will. It's a strange question to answer. The first thing that you have to figure out for your company, for your product, is of course what your product is and what it does. But very early on, you will be asked the question, where's the value for me? Why am I going to take money out of my pocket and give you money for your product? what's the value in it for me. If you're selling a food item, I can tell you the value to me to eat a donut, or I don't eat donuts, eat a muffin or a cupcake or whatever, those cupcakes with like all the stuff on top. Love those. Right? They just keep going in like it's nobody's business.
Just a different shaped donut, let's face it.
Exactly. Exactly. But you know what the value is there. So we had this conversation today, internally, for 2 hours with 4 people in the room, right? So that was a day, and I was pissed at the end because it's a lot of time. But your value statement, the what's in it for me is critical. If you guys get to a point that you raise, and I hope you all get to the point that you raise venture capital money, the venture caps it's a very similar process to talking to a 3-year-old. And I don't mean this as a negative. Right? When my nieces and my nephews were 3, you would talk to them, and you would say, Dahlia, it's time to eat dinner. And she would say, why? And I would say, well, because everyone's sitting down and having dinner now. It's dinner time. It's 7 o'clock. And she would say, why? And then if I got to a point where I really made a really valid point in her brain, she would say, how? And honest to God, the first conversations I ever had with VCs, it was exactly the same thing. I got up there in front of 40 people in a room in New York City with a microphone just like this, with a cold that was horrible, and these guys had like stadium seating, and I knew that every single person in that room could personally write a check for $10 million to me. And I did a 10-minute, by-the-clock presentation on my company. And after that 10 minutes, they had 5 minutes by the clock to ask me any questions they wanted. And they were 0 holds barred. Okay, they can ask whatever they want, and they did. But in that conversation, you realize very quickly what your answers are going to be and how you're going to be able to navigate through that conversation. And it's just like that. It's how, it's why. And you've got to know your stuff cold. So the answers for you to your question specifically are, when you know, you know. When you don't turtle away from questions with, oh, we're going to do it, and it's going to be awesome, and you're going to love it, and you actually have verified, truthful, knowledgeable information, you can say, well, did you know that 68% of resumes are discarded because of an error before they're even moved through the resume intake process? The person says, no, I didn't know that. Aha, and you've got a hook, right? You've created something, you're factual, you become the expert, and suddenly you have the microphone, and they're listening because you've made a point that they didn't otherwise know. And that's when you start to build off of that. And by the end of the conversation, hopefully you have money, or you have a customer, or you have both. But you've got to get to that point, you've got to do the pinball machine thing and move around a lot and bounce off a lot of bumpers before you get to that level of understanding yourself.
Did you get any checks after?
I got dinner.
Better than nothing.
That's good.
So if I remember the question, it was so long ago. No, I'm going to challenge a couple things you said. That, first you get you some momentum, and then how long before you get to that next phase and it becomes easier. So it doesn't actually get easier. So it's actually easier to get a little bit of business, right? Because there's so many people out there or businesses that can have what you're selling that it's not that hard to get a few. There's different phases of you get anybody first is good, and then you get a few. There's usually these steps that you need to take in a business. Each one has its unique challenges that make them very different, but equally challenging, but in a different way. So to go from a few to a whole bunch, right, requires a whole bunch of figuring things out, right? And I'm going to ask answer the scaling question just a bit after this. So, it's always longer than you think is the answer. That's how many days it is. I was going to say 4, but it's more than 4 days. But you have to figure out early on if you can acquire customers at a good rate, and then how to start systematizing that. And if you're smart about how you're going to do things, you're going to start with a smaller segment of your audience. The the ones that either have the most amount of pain or they're in a specific vertical. We talked about how can you reach these people. Maybe there's a certain market, let's say you're going to sell to lawyers or people that sell to grocery stores, right? You're going to focus in on a section of the market because your resources are always smaller than the size of the market. So I always like to say you got to go small to go big, which means you have to shrink down your addressable market so that when you apply your marketing force against it, something can move, right? You don't want to apply a little bit of force against a big market. So when you finally get some momentum in there, then you just get to this next level. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 tactics that are working, but you know your goal, and you've just moved from like here to like here, right? And you want to be like way like on the 2nd floor, 10 floors up from here on the growth of your business. So while you're growing this phase, you always have to be thinking of how to start building today for the next phase. So you're actually living in 2 worlds while you're growing your business. You're living in the world of, I have to deliver right now, but I also have to start planting the seeds for, because next year, like the goal is like, it's going to be more than 2x, right? So getting to each of those phases, it's really, every phase presents a whole new set of challenges, because when you grow, then you need to hire more people, right? And then you need to find the right people. And then they need to understand what you do, then they need to work together, and then there's more people in other parts of the organization, and then you create systems, and you have to have different meetings, and there's cross-functional things that happen, and the business operation starts to change, right? And then maybe you do get funding or you don't get funding, right? Or you got this much runway or that much runway, you say, I gotta slow down my spend or I gotta ramp up something. So it doesn't actually get easier. I've called it the relentlessness of growth. Is no matter what you've done, you've always got to get more. So there's always this, that's one of the things I like too, is it's never done. So you're always going to be pushed and challenged to find more. So if you're able in your model to, so at FreshBooks we had a very deliberate, it was called the bowling pin model, which some people talk about, is we knew that in the ecosystem of invoicing in the freelance community, that web designers were the bowling pin for us. Because a web designer, as a freelancer, would often work with a developer or someone in IT or maybe an illustrator or a marketer. So if we could get the web designer to use the product, then what do they do is, well, if they get other contractors, so they're going to invoice their clients, right? Or they'll invoice, let's say they're doing some web design work for a marketer, they're going to send them an invoice with FreshBooks, right? So they're going to start introducing their invoicing to their network because it's just how they work. So you get a little bit of a network effect. Or if you've got any kind of virality and you can figure out a model where everybody that you acquire, Dropbox did their marketing program of, if you refer someone into Dropbox, you get a little more extra storage space and they get a little more storage space, right? If you get any kind of virality, because I like to say is as your customer base grows, your marketing base grows. So every customer becomes a new marketer for your company. So in as much as you're able to take advantage of that to build, then those are the types of things where what you'll find is your network will spin a little bit, and then I call it, you just hit this next critical mass where there's enough people that the business just kind of moves on its own to that next level. But not every business is built that way. But if your goal is to grow really big, or even if it's just to really accelerate, if you can build something into your model that takes advantage of that kind of virality or sharing, where people just want to connect that product, and Uber does it too, right? If you're for Uber, everybody gets a discount, and there's the Ritual app. How many people are using Ritual? Anyone ever heard of the Ritual app, right? So they're doing the same thing as if it's for ordering your food ahead of time, so you can just walk in and your food is ready instead of lining up. If you refer to somebody else with your code, everybody gets $10 off something. So building those types of things are great because as you grow, that marketing base, that consumer base, builds your marketing engine, and then it will spin into a new cycle. But then it'll sort of hover there for a while, and then once you hit the next critical mass, it'll bump up. But don't think that it gets easier, because it actually gets harder and harder to keep the numbers growing.
At what stage should you release that product to test the market?
That's a good question. So I'm not a product expert, but what I would suggest is that I would say, what is it you need to learn, right? So I've done things where we were testing just a mobile device, and we just had everything on there's all kinds of testing frameworks where there's no functionality, but I can on my iPhone load a photo in there, and if I hit this blue dot on the photo, it'll pretend like this functionality. So there's actually nothing functional about it. It's all just images, right? So you can test a user experience, right? And we actually had this experience where we described a product to someone, and I thought, it was okay. But we said, well, here's how it would work. And there was actually nothing built other than it was on a prototype engine. And they went through it and they said, oh, well, if it kind of worked that way, then that would be really helpful. So we were really in the learning and discovery phase of, did they experience what we wanted them to experience? And it was more about a conceptual sell, where they kind of got what it was going to do, and they go, oh, that's really neat, right? If you want to actually test your ability to convert customers and their actual usability, you're probably going to have to build something, right? But there's lots of people, as Eric's saying, even your own network that you can get that be happy. If it doesn't look pretty, they can give you feedback. But I think you need to build enough to be able to answer the question that you need to answer that says, once I know this, then I can invest in the next thing, right? But you don't want to invest this whole amount of time to get something built and then find out that something you assumed at the very beginning was completely wrong, because then you've wasted a lot of time and resource. That's about the best answer I can give for that. I'll hand it over to Eric.
The MVP today, and I'm speaking from my presence and knowing the startup space, the term MVP is very overused and very underdelivered, right? We all know what that means. Not good, not solid. So if you're starting off and you're trying to figure out how you're going to substantiate the claim of whatever you're making around your company, we are going to do this and this is why, then you have to be able to have enough conversations with people first and quickly. I don't mean like in the next 10 minutes. I mean fast conversations. It shouldn't take you an hour to describe what you're doing. So having those conversations and being able to get to the point quickly and have them understand, truly understand what it is that you're going to build is your first step. In my mind, that's your MVP. Because you can mock something up and make it pretty and make it look like this and make it do all these things based off the user's needs later. But if you're building it off of the wrong dream and the wrong claim, you have a different problem. So my point is, don't go to market, don't go to the stage of an MVP without first validating what your concept is.
And how many people should you talk to validate it?
There's no finite number. When you know, you know. When you're sleeping at night because you feel like I've got this, that's when you can move it forward. Right? It should be more than 10, but less than 30. If you want a number, I would do it that way. The thing that I did was, and I'm fortunate to have the podium, be on stage in front of a few hundred people, and I did use it to do my litmus test, and I would describe what it is. And this was before I started talking, so there's no commitment from them yet. And I would describe what it is, and I would get these nods. That makes sense. How many of you have ever hired for a role? Hands go in the air. How many of you ever had to read through dozens and dozens of resumes in order to get a shortlist together? Hands go in the air, right? Everyone who's hired has done that. Even if you are the president of the company and you're hiring a vice president and you ask HR to get you 20 resumes, they did it for you, right? But you still had to go through the 20 and decide who you wanted to meet from that point forward. So I can substantiate it before we get from floor 1 to floor 5 in the elevator. And once I had enough people saying yes, I thought, okay, now I can go and figure out a way to build this thing. And of course, do all the doctoring on the backside to make sure that we can have it technically correct. But if I can have enough people understand me in English and understand what I'm saying and nod that they would buy this thing, where do I sign up? Then I knew I was onto something.
When you pitch it to them, and the question is for both of you, do you tell them, the price that you're thinking of? Do you tell them of your vision? If your vision involves, a series of steps, do you then walk them through? Because, the way I'm seeing it right now is the product evolves through different stages. And then what happens at stage 1 and stage 2 is very different. I'm just thinking, like, if I pitch some, the stage 1 and stage 2, it might be confusing for the customer. Maybe I should just focus on stage 1. But, like, eventually what I want to get out is stage 2 going to be interesting to people? Are people going to buy stage 2? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yes, I think I do. Let's try a different answer for this one. Obviously, it depends on what you're building, okay? I'm a guy. I'm stereotypical when it comes to these types of things, so I talk about sports and cars. So let's talk about a car. Your conversations about the tires and the seats and the internal manufacturing of the car are going to be super limited. If you're talking to somebody who wants to hear about how the car is going to drive in the end. So if you have 4 stages of your product, focus on the end point, unless you intend to dramatically change the product as you get feedback. Because the first time you build something and somebody says you should change this from here to there, make it blue instead of purple, or make it pink instead of green, and you don't do it, you just pissed off your customer. So rather than worrying about all the changes that other people are going to throw at you, come out with your car and then worry about what color you're going to paint it. If that makes sense. I see people nodding on the side here. All the guys are nodding with me. Right, but don't get, my point is, don't get bogged down by, we wanted the 1.0 or 1.1 to look like this, and it didn't work, or whatever. Focus on what your goal and your passion is going to be after the 4th version, and work with a group that's going to accept the functionality, if this is relevant for you, the functionality that you promised in V1, V2, V3, and V4.
Yes, 100% agree. Right? So, yeah, for sure. When you at the concept stage, you sell what it is that you're building and get feedback. If I build something like this, it would be valid. But when you're actually going to deliver something and it's only stage 1 and you're going to be out there serving a customer, make sure that you're selling what you have, right? And even at FreshBooks, Mike McDermott, CEO, was very deliberate about never sell the roadmap, right? Never tell anyone, and never complain that we're missing something, because people will always buy what you have now. If you say, if you tell them what you have now, you'll find people that'll want what you have now. But if you tell them it does something else, then they come in and it doesn't do it, right? So, it could be red, but they come in and, well, it's not red, it's blue, and it can't actually be red, then they're going to be pissed off, right? So, and through that, figure out, that will also help you figure out where does phase 1 start. And maybe phase 1 could even be a free version, because phase 1 is get people on the platform doing something, right? And phase 2 is introduce a critical level of functionality that takes it to a new level, where some of those people will upgrade to that thing, but they're still going to be happy with the thing that they had before. So there's so many different ways of taking it from there, but I agree 100% with Eric, is know at the concept level, sell what it is conceptually you want to do from all phases, but when you're in market, make sure that you're selling what you have, and you're getting the customers that would be happy with whatever that is, right, as a start.
Well, if there are no more questions.
I have a question. As a technology company, how do you protect your ideas? Does patent work?
I don't talk about them in recorded conversations. People are living and breathing on my every word. Yeah, we have good IP lawyers. And we go, no, it's the honest truth. They protect me, and they protect us, and that's their job. You have to make sure in every conversation, we make people coming in for job interviews sign NDAs.
Okay. And
they can't, it's a bad analogy, they can't do much. Once they leave the conversation, they can't just go and create a cubicle part 2. Okay. But that's, there's times to be really concerned about that, and there's times to not be concerned about that. But as far as the process that we go through, you turn it over to your lawyers, you protect your IP, you apply for patents, you figure out what you've done that's different to what somebody else is doing, because the reality is 10 minutes after we go live, somebody else is going to come up and try to do it differently, or call it something else, or apply it to something different, and we have to be there to make sure that we've been able to do our diligence and cross our T's and dot our I's.
Would it be possible for you to recommend some of those lawyers and accountants that you think they're
Oh, my lawyers would love it if I referred business.
Awesome. Awesome. So I have another question is that how do people value your company on what basis? For example, for a listing company, people value their company based on the cash flows, P's. How do people value your company or a startup company, not your company, but a startup company on different stages?
You might be better off answering this question.
The choice and pleasures.
Yeah, your valuation it's a cocktail, right? So you asking me how they're going to evaluate our company. No, this isn't a joke. You asking me how they're going to value our company is like going up to the bartender and saying, make me a drink, right? There are so many different ways and so many different things. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the product you built, the vision, and this is what you have to sell, guys. This is what you have to be passionate about, because when you sit down in that first conversation and you try to explain what it is that you're building, it doesn't matter what your valuation is, because you don't have one. You have no customers, you have no team, you're a guy with an idea, or a girl with an idea. And as soon as you start talking, you know very quickly whether or not the person is nodding and engaged in the conversation, or if they're checking their watch and they're going to be out of there in 5 minutes. So, yes, it's all things that you mentioned. How much cash is in the bank? What are you burning? What are you bringing in? Right, at the end of the day, what does your balance sheet look like? And if your sales stop tomorrow, what would happen to you? Are you a company that, you look at the external markets and you say, are you a company that if the next Uber shows up, are you going to go out of business? Is Uber going to go out of business? Maybe. If we all start driving flying cars, well, then Uber has a problem. Right? If public transit becomes an overnight success and everyone's taking public transit, then Uber has a problem. These things aren't going to happen. Right? So that also affects your valuation. And then you go into shares and all that crap, which I don't like talking about because everyone does it differently. Right? But as a startup, I can tell you guys, without a shadow of a doubt, the first person that you bring in that you want to hire, the first question they're going to ask you is, how many shares do I get? And I have seen it come up earlier than what their salary is going to be. Do I get shares in your company? What? No. Okay, they're gone. Boom. Right? Like attitude is I have a bookload of analogies. Attitude is a mindset. It's not a skill set. You can't teach somebody to have a different attitude. They either get it or they don't get it. And somebody who comes in the room and asks me first how many shares of the company they're going to get, they're out of there. And it was a mistake to bring them in. We should have been able to figure that out earlier.
Update the algorithm.
Exactly. See, he's paying attention. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. So when is really the suitable time to starting having a conversation with investors based on like the money, team resources you have like for that stages?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I typically haven't really been involved in fundraising other than knowing that it's going on, and there's certain things we need to hit and achieve as a marketing team and as a company to make sure we're hitting the things we promised we were going to do. But the question, I'm going to step way back and you want to start with a vision of how do you want to build and grow your company, right? So again, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of different founders that had very different plans and ideas of what they wanted to do. So the guys at Lavalife, it was all started with friends and family money, and they didn't need anything more. And they didn't go raise money till, I don't know, year 7 or 8, right? Because then they had a whole other vision of what they wanted to do, and they weren't generating enough cash within the business. So they'd been profitable, they'd been spending out a lot of cash, but not enough to get to that next phase of what they wanted to do. So they decided, you know what, now it's time to go and raise some money. And a guy, when we were FreshBooks, we actually had for a number of years as one of our priorities was called Fund Ourselves, right? So we had taken some outside money, but nothing institutional, but we just wanted to stay in control and not, get into the cycle of institutional money coming in and having other folks' interests involved. And that was very important to Mike early on. But eventually, his business after, I don't know, like 9 or 10 years, so they raised some money last year again because, Mike wanted to get into the accounting software rather than just invoicing. It's a much bigger market. You're dealing with bigger competitors. And now you're like, you know what? I need to go and get some outside money to come in and grow us now. And the other thing would be, is there runway now? So if I had $50 million today, could I spend it all and grow my business, right? So maybe that's not the path that your business is going to grow on, but if there's immediate, oh my God, if I had $50 million right now, I could spend all that money and grow my business like crazy. Or am I really early in a cycle of something where it just makes I don't need to raise that money. You know what? I'm going to go slow, and eventually I'm going to hit a point where I need to bring in that capital. So, and then do you even want it, right? Do you want to, some folks I've worked with want to just keep control of their business, and they've raised enough money that, they think they're going to take it from there. So think about what you want for yourself and your business, because choosing to raise funds then leads to a whole cycle of other partners in your business with you and other types of decisions and influencers on how you're going to run and grow your business. So, but I would always say, it's always this, raise money when you can get it. Like this has been the philosophy, is raise money when you don't need it, because that's when you're probably going to get the best valuations for, and give yourself enough runway. I know Alan Lau from Wattpad had an initial raise, and he just kept extending it because more people wanted it. He raised way more than he needed, but he just said, you know what? And you look at now, it's getting really hard to raise money right now. So some people say, you know what? While we're raising, and if more people want to come in, they'll just start collecting it now because you don't know what the environment's going to be in 2 years when you might need it again. So there's like a billion different scenarios that you can play out there as well.
So, sorry, just a follow-up question on that. So, for some products, like you have different phases, and maybe like at different stage, you would talk to the investors to get the ideas and feedback. So, like my question is, like, do you usually wait till the end when you have finished products and talk to the investors, or are you kind of, starting those conversations at the beginning or somewhere in the middle?
I'll give a short answer to that one is, you want to be ahead of when you're going to need the money, because you never know how long it's going to take, and you also want to make sure you find the right investor. So, depending on how much you need and where you are in your cycle, you may have to start sooner rather than later. So you have to give yourself runway, because even when somebody says yes, it's not like the next day that everything happens. There's a whole bunch of things, but Eric may have a better idea around some of those details.
As an entrepreneur, you're always raising money for your company. Always. Okay? You want to give me $10? I'll give you a share of my company. Sure. That's an easy conversation to have. And you can have it with everybody, with anybody. Over coffee, over dinner, it doesn't matter. Right? You can have it in line at Starbucks with the barista. When you have a product or a concept that people want, and it doesn't matter if you have a product out there that everybody wants, or whether you have a concept out there that people see the value of, there's a paradigm shift where people start coming to you. And that's when you know you're onto something that's good. Unless the product is out there, if the product's out there, obviously, you're still onto something good. It's just in a different context. We are always raising money. So we set out to raise a seed round, and we raised the seed round. And then I realized that other people wanted to come in on the seed round. And I had to decide whether or not we were going to take in additional money, or whether we were going to stick by our laurels and say, no, you missed out. right? Which raises the valuation in the future because you missed out. So all of a sudden the person who wanted to give you 100 grand, regardless of what they're buying with the 100 grand, they now have to spend 150 to get the same shares. And that doesn't make people very happy, right? There's a great movie out there called Other People's Money. If you've never seen it, apparently most of you have, or at least you think it's funny to say. If you haven't seen Other People's Money, you should see it because it's a great business movie with Danny DeVito. But when you're raising, you tell everybody that you're raising. And if you're raising at the wrong time for your business, you tell everybody and then you beg everybody to get behind you. So the answer is we are always raising money. We have not raised a VC round yet. We haven't had to. Do I have the VCs in my back pocket, so to speak? Contacts that I've already met with, who have already seen the deck, who have already seen the prototype, who I've already bought into what we're building? Absolutely. And it's not a quick process, because getting time with those people is long and painful, much like the conversations themselves, because they ask all these why questions. So you're changing human resources, yes. Why? This is like a 9-hour conversation, dude. I can't tell you this in 30 seconds, but you have to. All right, so the answer is always be raising, but raise as much smart money as you can. There's a big difference between smart money and money. Okay? Money is when your dad writes you a check. That's easy. I am your child, here is your check. If my daughter could ask me for money, she would get money, right? Smart money is when the business and the objectives that the funds are coming from, or the individual that the funds are coming from, is somehow aligned or can help you in the goal of the organization. So we've taken in money from all sorts of sources. I mean, honest to God, there haven't been that many I can count on one hand how many individuals or companies have gotten behind us. And one of them is me. So I can still count on one hand, right? The first thing that people ask you is, how much have you put in? And when you have these conversations, recognize that this is no holds barred. This is not the time to be shy. Because when somebody says to you, how much have you put in, you need to have an answer. And the answer can't be 0. I should clarify that. The answer can't be 0. You've got to have a number there. And as you move through the process and the phases and the steps, you have the conversations and your world, it's all confidential, give or take, but your world becomes very public. You know, there's a reason why I'm careful about answering the valuation question. Yeah, I can tell you the valuation question, the answer to the valuation question, as quickly as I can tell you the exact amount in our corporate bank account. I can tell you my license plate and my phone number, all those things in the same 2 seconds. I know them all. I know exactly what all those answers are. But you wouldn't just walk around and answer all those questions to the wrong person in the wrong environment. So be careful about what you answer and how you answer, but recognize that when you get into certain situations, you're going to be asked these questions and you need to have answers that make sense. Because the second you tell somebody, I put in $1,000, great, they're going to give you 500. And you've got to be able to use it and use it effectively. I don't know if that helps you.
Okay, we're almost done here. Like, any last questions? If not, we'll open up the floor for networking afterwards, which you can connect with both of them directly.
How many of you are going to add Mitch and I to LinkedIn later today or tomorrow? If your hand is down, you should be asking yourself why.
And how do you rescue that?
We plan to do it today.
Do it today.
Great. Okay, thanks. Can we give them a round of applause? Because they're... One is next month. We'll have 2 speakers. One of them is from the Muse, which I don't know if you guys know. It's a pretty hot tech company in Toronto, all over the news all the time. Actually, the richest Asian person, like Asia.
We want to meet him.
Apparently,
he's on your list.
I'm coming back.
Apparently, that person invested as well, so it's in his portfolio too. So, like, very, very famous. And also, if any one of you guys want to help out in doing this kind of event in the future, just reach out to me. And yes, thank you for coming. Thank you.